marks.
Well, hopefully it's been relevant. Hey, so Rola's question is, I let people go too easily, or her statement, I let people go too easy with life insurance, let them off the hook. So the question for the group would be, how could somebody like Rolla, and maybe not her specifically, but how could somebody like Rolla, how could a newer agent here, build confidence and get over that hump of being more forward with not just life insurance, but any recommendation, the recommendation to save more money, the recommendation to sit down and like look at our finances and have a meeting about it. A lot of people, don't want to do that. The idea of maybe sitting down and considering a second income career with us. What would you guys say to that?
I don't know. It's it's hard to leave something just on an opportunity. At
What do you
least
mean by
that's
that?
how I felt. Like for me, it's hard to like. I'm a very comfortable person where I'm at right now. So to just leave, like to join an opportunity, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to quit my job kind of thing. Or it's just hard to explain this here. How I'm thinking of it. I'm very wary. I'm very cautious of things. So I would be like,
So you're coming at this from like kind of like a recruiting standpoint, like to make the jump to do this as a career. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Let's talk about something even smaller than that though. Like back to this idea of like, how could a newer agent build confidence in contacting people, being more forward with our information and education and ability to help them and go through a process? Because let's start with the basic premise. Do we all agree that somebody that goes through our client process and has our knowledge and service and tools is better off than if they never went through that process or never met us professionally? I mean, if we don't believe that, then we shouldn't be on this call, right? I mean, that's foundational to like, are we significantly improving somebody's life, or are we just transacting some sort of business and collecting a commission for it? So what's going to increase that belief? What would be the way somebody could potentially do that?
I would
Well,
say having a field trainer involved, that way to
Okay.
like borrow their confidence and also see how they do it.
Yeah, great answer.
I was gonna say, I mean, along with that, it comes with um, before you increase your swings that you're taking. I mean, I think it's a big deal to practice what you preach, and
Okay.
you got to look at your own, what's going on inside your four walls, and kind of like, we always talk about uh, getting yourself right before you can help others. So I think that's a big deal.
That's a great answer. I love both of those answers.
You need
And by the way,
experience.
well, let me just pause right there. Are either of those things, do they necessarily have to be big swings? In other words, does somebody that joins our business have to like figure out how to save $1,000 a month to be able to like, or
No,
what
no,
if they're saving for the first time intentionally somewhere $50 a month or $100 a
right,
month, or
right.
right?
Yeah, no, and that was kind of the preface of that meeting that I had, is that look, I'm fully on board with, like, again, we're gonna get together again, and this was kind of a rough introduction, but talk more specific numbers and stuff. But they just said, I just glanced and said, so what are you looking at for like credit card payoff? I don't really know how much they're putting on it or anything quite yet, but they said probably 2 to 3 years of paying it off. And so it was kind of simply left at, okay, but do we not go out to eat one more time or one less time a month? Because feeding a family of five going out to eat's expensive. And if
It's
that can
nuts
be,
now.
and,
Yeah,
and if that can be, if that $120 can be allocated elsewhere, monthly without drastically, I'm all for them getting their credit card debt paid off, right? At 22%, whatever it is. And I told them that, but in the process, getting this protection in place, I think is just huge for them. So,
you got it. Um, And Alec, your idea of involving a field trainer, like, hey, that could be one call, one meeting, like just, you got to take advantage of that, but that's not, that's a small baby step you can take. And, anybody else, Ryan, like you look like you're ready to chime in.
I think it's helping people prioritize what they want. I mean, if you just look around at kind of where most people are at, and yeah, I've got experience behind this suggestion, but man, I've got clients of mine that are still defining that. And I can't want it for somebody, but I can help them prioritize what they want out of their life. And yeah, I just and same could be true for all of us as business owners. I mean, if we get really clear on what we want, you know, literally the sky's the limit. And same was true for a family we're helping. So I think it's as simple as that.
So my question is a bit vague and a bit ad hoc. All those are good answers. What I would tell you is, and I would encourage you guys to write this down. I'm going to give you 2 things to think about. And I'm going to give you the answer. The 2 things you need to think about highly specifically with your spouse, if applicable, is why are you in this business? I mean, that needs to be a lot more specific than I want to make more money, or it'd be great to own my own business one day and quit XYZ, whatever I do, control more of my schedule. I've said for years, I mean, everybody generally wants to be in better shape, have a better marriage, be happier, whatever. Like everybody generally wants these things, right? They generally want to travel more. But what are the specific, how detailed are you into why you are in this business? And that can evolve, and frankly should evolve a little bit as your life moves on and evolves. But I've always been crystal clear on why am I here? Why, especially in the early years, why am I working all these hours, all these nights in the field, all of this uncertainty, all of these uncomfortable things, the ups and downs? Like, why am I willing to go down this harder path than all of my friends are going down? And if I'm telling you right now, I would not have stayed on that path if I wasn't clear on where that path was going to lead. Okay. And so that leads into the second thing you need to get very clear on, which is, so you move from why are you doing this, which can involve helping other people, to what it could do for your life, to then the number 2 point is you need to be highly specific on what you need to get out of this business. Okay. And that should, in the bridge that links these 2 things, should be some sort of economic thing, right? I mean, this is a business, right? This isn't just a charity or a mission or a crusade. It's not a religious pursuit, right? But it should start with some economic things, but it should lead to some other life attributes, right? So for me, it's been things along the lines of, I want complete and total freedom in my life. I don't want anybody to have a thumb on my life, period, or my wife or my children. And so of course that evolved, as I got married and had kids. But and then that leads you down the path of well, what would that mean? Like, what would I have to be truly, completely independent of this world, of needing any kind of benefit, any kind of government program, any kind of employer, any kind of tax credit, any kind of family support, you name it, right? And get detailed about what that looks like and start putting a number on it, and have some fun with that. And then number 2 would be, what other kind of life attributes do you want? Do you want to build more? Do you want to be more confident, right? Do you want to feel better about what you've accomplished? Do you want to feel better about who you are and what you represent? Do you want to build your personal identity? You might notice that as freely, this wasn't my agenda at all today, but as freely as these things are coming out of my mouth, it's because they reside, deep inside my brain and my heart. Like that, they're not just something I read in a book last month I'm regurgitating. This is literally who I am and who I've become. I've used this business platform to build me into a completely different person than I otherwise would. Okay. And so I would encourage you That's a big assignment coming out of today, because I think if you don't have those two things clearly identified, honestly, I just don't think you're going to accomplish a lot here. I really don't. It's akin to like if I just roll into a gym haphazardly every once in a while when I feel like it and throw some weights around, like, are we really going to make any kind of physical change in our body? You know, you might check the box and tell your buddy, like, yeah, I was at the gym this morning, like, but are we really accomplishing anything? And I think what I just laid out is a deeper assignment than, I mean, that should involve many conversations with your spouse. It should be an ongoing thing. Leah and I directly and indirectly have talked about that continuously, over the years together. And I would tell you, we're really clear on what those things are, and they have evolved immensely for us just in the last couple of years. And so I told you I would give you the two things and then give you the answer. So the two things are, why are you here? Why are you going down this road? Right? Connected to that, point number two is what specifically do you and your family need to get out of this, and by when? And why are those things non-negotiables in your life? And how you do that is you've got to get to big events, right? That's the ultimate answer. So all three, Ryan's answer, Joe's answer, Alex's answer, are all part of the formula, right? But there's three levels of training here. There's three levels into fundamentally learning a new business and being successful, right? One is going to be personal development, personal training. So that's personal work you do on studying our product, studying for a license, reading the right books, listening to the right podcast, associating with the right people, all of that falls under like things that you control personally to build your character, your identity, your confidence, your skills, your knowledge. Number two is going to be field training. And that's going to be largely what we do with our field trainer, right? To Alex's point, is if you're not getting in the field and in live meetings, whether Zoom or in person, going through real cases with real people and real meetings, you're not going to learn the business at all. That's the bridge to going from a novice to being fully operational in our business. And then the third thing is big events. And you can't take any one of the three out of this equation. It's like a 3-ingredient soup. If you take any one ingredient out, it's going to taste really bad, right? Because all three play a unique role that nothing else is going to, the other two can't overcompensate for. And why are big events so important? A little bit of knowledge, but mostly that's the ability, that's the mechanism to build your identity, to build your reason why, to remind you of certain things. And I will tell you, if I need upcoming big events that are in the calendar to, clear out some fluff in my mind, some distractions, some whatever, I can go down some detailed wormholes and get stuck doing things and remind myself of like, okay, what are the key things I need to focus on? What are the key things we need to be hitting and focused on as a team? How do I need to get better as a leader? How do I need to be a better example? All of those things, like that's what big events do for me yet to this point in my career now. I don't go to big events just to like say I go to them because it would look bad if I don't. Like I would just tell you guys, hey guys, I'm just busy. I just can't make this one. I go to them because I get things out of them, right? There's intangibles I get out of them. I get relationships and time with people from around the country I've built great friendships with. I love the team camaraderie we have, and team dinners and sitting together. And I just love all of that. There's an environment, right? I read an email, it's not worth going on the tangent, but the bottom of the email from somebody happened to be in the fitness industry said environment over discipline. And I just love that. And the whole concept and the whole thing of his email is like why being part of his gym was going to lead you to have better results than you just trying to work out on your own. Because like discipline will wane for all of us, we're humans. But if you're part of the right environment, and I know some of you guys are in like the workout space, if you're part of the right environment, it becomes a lot more than just like going out and getting a workout in. You're probably more consistent. You're probably getting better results. You're probably getting other intangible attributes, friendships and community and camaraderie and experiences that are far beyond just getting a workout in, right? So that's what big events are for us. And so back to this idea, if you're gonna like really make a move here, I don't know how you can do it without getting to big events. I've never seen it done before. Truly, I've never seen it done before. I don't know of a single person making serious money, let's call it $500,000 or more a year, that doesn't go to at least one big event a year and usually multiple. I've just never seen it. And so you guys, this is so critical. And we have two coming up, and I'm going to intentionally prioritize one over the other. But the next one coming up for Series 6 licensed people only is TFA Exchange in November. So if you are Series 6 licensed, and I know some of us are already registered for this in Vegas, I do think it's going to be a worthwhile event, and we can chat offline about the specifics of it. They haven't published too much on the agenda, whatever. Actually, no, that's not true. They did just in the last week, but we can talk offline about some things happening there that I think are going to be really worthwhile for you to get out there. But the event I think everybody needs to make a massive priority on is the Wealth Wave event in Dallas in January. And they just, posted that officially, I think the other day. Joe, I think, put it on our page. And you guys, that is just the event, right? And not only do I think it's incredibly well done, but I think you accomplish all the things we just talked about at that event. And the last intangible of a big event, by the way, is the fact that you have to get on an airplane and leave your city and leave your house and stay in a hotel. That is part of what makes the secret sauce of a big event. It gets you out of your environment, and it lets you like leave everything going on with your kids and your life and your job and whatever's going on, and really focus on why you're doing what you're doing. And you just hear things differently when you're in the right environment, right? And so that amount, I was just looking at it here before this call. I mean, it's a Thursday through a Sunday. You're going to fly down to Dallas on a Thursday. You're going to fly home on a Sunday. And so it's 3 nights. It's $150 to register for the event. A good thing is Dallas is really cheap to get to. So you can probably find a $200 or $250 plane ticket there. And the hotel is about $500 for the 3 nights if you get your own room. So, I would highly encourage, Leah will be there with me. I would highly encourage you to bring your spouse if at all possible, because that's when you guys can dream together and game plan together. And that's been so critical for us over the years. But if you have to go as a single person, or you just can't make it with the spouse or the kids or whatnot, you can pair up in a hotel room and make that economical. But you guys, I just want you to think about this. That is a business investment. So not only are you going to get a minimum of a 30% write-off on everything you spend there, based on, FICA taxes, self-employment taxes, income tax, all that kind of stuff. But I just don't know how you launch a business here without getting to an event like that and making that a commitment, to get there. And the last thing I'm going to say before we transition to our agenda here is as a reminder for all those, some of you guys were there last January. Does anybody remember the one thing I said was the goal for this January to the group that was there last January?
Everyone to have one more person.
You got it. That's the goal. And I got some work to do there, guys. Because big events are huge. Step one is you get to them. For some of you that I think are planning on going, this will be your first Wealth Wave big event ever, which is awesome. But then that next step is like, back to this idea of leverage, right? Big events are awesome when you're there. They're better when you're there with your spouse, if applicable. And they're even better yet when you've got a teammate sitting next to you. And then you got a row of people sitting next to you. Like there's all these leverage events, but those things magnify your experience and the fun we have. And so for the crew going out to Vegas, I'm going to line up some fun stuff. We'll go do Top Golf or a cool dinner. We'll do something at a minimum out there, but we're definitely going to do some nice stuff out in Dallas. The agenda's a little tighter. I mean, they got you in meetings pretty much the whole time, but we'll sneak in a fun dinner somewhere and have a good time. But that's just a cool setting. It's a cool hotel. They always do some like cocktail receptions at the end that people can hang out at, and it's just an incredible time. So you guys, I want you to give that some real thought, because the cool thing about this business is you guys, none of you have to do anything. I'm just giving you the playbook of how you make a big shift. And it's the only way I know how to do it. If there were an easier way, I'd give it to you. I've never seen it done somewhere else. And so before we wrap up, any other thoughts or comments on what we've covered here today? So I hope you guys make the decision now, because I don't know anybody that realistically couldn't make that financially on this team. I don't. Now, if I called everybody up and said, hey, let's go to Vegas this weekend, you in? Like, not everybody can do that, right? But can you get to Dallas in 5 months? Yeah, I think you can. But it might need to move up the priority list instead of maybe going out to dinner kind of thing, or all the stuff we could all call out. Hey, let's start figuring out a way to put $50 a week into a savings account or whatever we got to do, and save ourselves $1,000, $1,200, whatever it's going to cost to get down there, and give yourself the chance to launch based on being part of that environment and getting that information. And so anyways, I'm going to keep talking about that, but I'm already registered for these events, and I highly recommend you guys just get on it, make the commitment, seal your mind. And then I think you say, okay, now I got to go to work. Like, I know I'm going to leave this event, motivated. So how do I get in front of more people now? Well, I think Ryan and Alec did a tremendous job last week on, the contacting and prospecting. And I'd like to do that probably once a month, where I'm just not on the call at all. On purpose, I was able to attend it. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to or not, but I on purpose didn't chime in because I wanted them to lead it, and they did a tremendous job. And I think it facilitated a great dialogue. I mean, Ryan Schwans, you had a lot to say, which was awesome, and it looks like you got some immediate benefit from that. But one thing I want to chime kind of back into is get back into some product training here. And so we're going to kind of do a segue, or a kind of tee the whole thing up today, and then get it kind of deep into the products. But I want to get into the idea of permanent life insurance. I want to get into IUL and VUL from lots of different standpoints, right? Would be from when do you use permanent, when do you use term, when do you blend both, to, what are the pros and cons and attributes? How do you run illustrations on IUL and VUL? Why IUL versus VUL, or vice versa? What are the advantages of doing something like that? So there's a lot of elements to talk about. But I thought today, our kind of conversation went a little bit longer, but just to kind of tee this conversation up and get into what I'd like to do is kind of get deep into IUL first, and then kind of segue into VUL, which is actually going to be a pretty quick transition, because all of the changing in those products is really one mechanism, which is, what's the cash value invested in. But the idea would be, let's start with this question. Why would somebody want or need permanent life insurance versus term life insurance? And I'm going to open this up and get some comments from you guys. But the idea would be, I don't, so of all the people I've talked to over the years, client wise, I usually kind of run into the same two ideas. Some people have this idea of like, they've listened to Dave Ramsey, or it's what their dad always told them to do, or something like that. And it's actually a minority of people. I mean, it's probably 10 or 20% of people. They're like, all we want is term. That's all we would ever do. We would never do anything with a cash value. Frankly, it's probably 10% of people out there. And for every person that says that, I probably have, on the other hand of things, I would never buy term. I feel like I'm throwing my money away. I'd only want it permanent insurance. That's probably, if there's like a bell curve, you guys know a bell curve, right? Like the tails on both sides are probably pretty equal, believe it or not. But there's a whole lot of people in the middle, the 80% of people in the middle of that bell curve that basically don't know. And they're like, well, I don't know. I mean, what should we do? Or what are the pros and cons? And I've heard this, I've heard that, but I'm not sure. And so that kind of leads to some of the questions. So what I'd ask you guys is, what do you guys think, just from a general standpoint of why would permanent life insurance make sense versus why would term life insurance make sense?
I mean, permanent, yeah, it's always gonna be there. You're covered for pretty much anything. Term more or less just in the event of an accident, it's gonna sound very basic, but like you don't want to leave your family high and dry in a position before you have the experience in life to get yourself into a position to have stuff. So that's just a safety net.
Yeah, it's a good start. Yeah, good answer. Anybody want to build on that?
Sound to the clients and objective. Do they have a permanent need or a temporary need?
Okay. Explain to me what a permanent need might be.
Pension maximization.
Yeah. So we'll certainly get into that element of it. Anything else?
Long-term planning.
Yeah. What do you mean by that, Rolla?
Well, there are people who are young with kids that might need a short-term planning for just to get them through until the kids are out of high school or college. And then you got those who just want to make sure they have a permanent policy for, them and their spouse, long-term planning for their retirement.
Yeah, so think of it this way, all right answers. So the question becomes, is there a reason for this couple that to make sure there's some sort of policy that's always in place? And what would that reason be? And so let's dismiss the reason. I mean, everybody, if the numbers didn't matter, if you just ask the question, would you rather, own your policy or rent your policy? Would you rather have a policy in place when you're 85 and pass away or not? All else being equal, of course, everybody would say owner. It's the same thing in real estate. If you ignore numbers and you said, hey, would you rather own your house or rent? I don't know anybody that say, well, I'd rather be a renter, right? But the economics can dictate, right? Sometimes it makes more sense to rent, especially in a economy like ours right now, candidly. And sometimes it can make more sense to own, but I don't think it ever. This idea, back in the 90s, George W. Bush had this big thing where he's like, I want everybody to be an owner in this country. I should say late 90s, early 2000s. I want everybody to be a homeowner. Like that was his big thing. And it led a lot of people down a bad place. And 8 years later, we had a massive financial crisis. So just a blanket statement that like permanent life insurance is better, I don't agree with. I don't agree with the statement that permanent life insurance is superior, nor do I agree with the statement that term life insurance is superior. And there's a lot of people in our industry, and there's a lot of authors of books and radio hosts, gurus and all of that do have those opinions. And believe it or not, they're on both sides. There are people out there that think that whole life, you get all these infinite banking guys, you see a lot of that on YouTube, and they think that whole life is the way to go. And of course, there's a bunch of people that think term is the way to go. I love that we sit in the middle of all of that. And as consultants, as advisors, we can sit down and look at goals, look at priorities, look at needs, and figure that out. But I'll give you a couple examples of why somebody might need a permanent policy. Okay. One would be estate planning. There's a lot of cases where, maybe to pay taxes due or to fund a trust. And I don't want to get too down that wormhole, but you start running into people with, multi-million-dollar net worths, and maybe they're on a trajectory towards being worth even more than that with compound growth. There could be reasons why we need to have a policy that pays a tax-free death benefit, whether you're 87 or 102 when you pass away. Another could be pension maximization, which we're going to get deep into that in one of these trainings. And we could talk about some cases that some of us have done recently. But the idea would be, hey, we need a permanent policy in place if we're going to make certain decisions about somebody's school teacher retirement pension or public employee retirement pension. So that could be a really big thing, and we do a lot of that as a team. Another reason, I'm not necessarily a huge advocate, but in the right scenario can make sense, is if we look at a permanent life insurance policy as not just a life insurance death benefit, but also a long-term care pool of money. And so if somebody had a policy and it's there for their spouse if they passed away, but it's also there for them if they go on, if need in-home, assistance, healthcare assistance, or eventually go into to a nursing home of some level, usually a graduated process. But you can look at most life insurance policies nowadays as basically like a simultaneous pool of money that, hey, we have $500,000 of death benefit and it's there if I die, but I can take out usually 2% of that death benefit, which would be $10,000 per month. I can take out towards any kind of long-term care need. And of course, that comes dollar for dollar off of the death benefit, but you're utilizing it. So that could be a reason somebody wants permanent life insurance. And then the last reason would be kind of more on the investment front. So less of a death benefit need, because some people that legitimately don't need life insurance at all. Most people do, even if it's just to cover final expenses and pay off debts, even if they're single. But there are definitely cases where somebody just doesn't need life insurance, right? They're single, they have assets, whatever. But even in those cases, somebody might look at the attributes of a permanent policy and say, you know, hey, if I'm already maxing out my Roth IRAs or my 401k or you name it, and I'm down to either I'm funding a taxable account and paying tax every year on it, or I'm funding a life insurance policy and paying some life insurance cost, but I can build all of the money tax free. There can be attributes to a life insurance policy that you can get that you can't replicate on your own with an investment account. It's funny, I was just reading an article this morning. Schwab put it out, and the point of the article talked about, you know, investing outside of your retirement plan. And I, you know, before I clicked on the link to read it, you know, to me, the usual suspects would be like, you know, tax efficient brokerage account and municipal bonds. And of course they talk about all that stuff, and they did mention annuities. They did mention the idea of investing in annuity and getting tax deferral on it. But I wasn't shocked, but maybe a little surprised. Usually there's like buried at the end, like, you know, an investment grade life insurance policy, but it's usually with a bunch of caveats and talk to your advisor because it may not make sense for you kind of stuff. They didn't even list it on there. And you guys, it's a massive tool of high income and high net worth Americans is to utilize life insurance to shelter lots of money. And you know, anyways, and so we can do a lot of that for our clients. So there can be a lot of reasons for that. You know, so we're gonna dive into. So the goal for next Tuesday is going to be, I want to start with IUL, because everybody with a life insurance license can work with IUL, and we work with lots of different carriers. But I'm going to start with Nationwide. If I had to pick one primary carrier, Nationwide would be my primary carrier. I'm not married to that forever, and we'll get into some specifics why I like them. But they're reliable. They're well-designed products. Their costs are very low compared to some competitors. And I love that I can simultaneously kind of pivot from an IUL to a VUL with them. And it's basically the same product design, just a different engine. But it's just a really competitive product out there. And of course, we get a ton of support on the sales end of things, underwriting, all that kind of stuff. And so it's a great baseline product to show you. But of course, we can work with lots of other carriers on IULs and a few with VULs. But definitely like their products. And so we're going to kind of show you that illustration, how to build the illustration, what it looks like. And we've already kind of covered terms. So I think that kind of is there. Anyways, I think that that's the game plan for the next couple of weeks. So we're going to start the recording earlier next week and get deep into IUL illustrations. And I would say come with questions. If you have questions on how things work, or maybe some objections you've heard in the field of people that you've presented this to and haven't gone with it, what they've said or what you've read about it. Anytime we can have those discussions, I think we can all benefit from it. So any other thoughts or questions on what we've covered here so far today? All right, well, hey guys, I hope we can keep our momentum. We have a lot of fun things happening as a team. I posted the other day that the office is officially under construction. It's been that way for a couple of weeks now, but it's fun to see daily progress now. And so I'll keep posting stuff every once in a while as I see some big progress being made. But I hope you take to heart what I said earlier today. It wasn't my plan to get into, but I hope you get really clear on those two things. And I hope you make some decisions. Maybe you use those two questions to lead you to some decisions about getting to a big event and figuring out how to prioritize. And the last thing I'm going to say about that is if you go into this thinking, this is important, how can we make this work? It's going to lead you down a process of figuring out a solution, right? It may not be immediately apparent, because it may not just be a money thing. It might be a who's watching our kids kind of thing. It might be, can I get that much time off of work? It might be that weekend's not really convenient for me because of something else in the calendar. It could be a lot of stuff. But if you start with, this is a priority, this feeds into a lot of other things that are priorities in my life. How can I figure out how to make this work? That's a totally different process than, I'm not sure. Here's all the statements I always hear. I'm not sure if I'm ready for a big event. I'm not sure I can. I got to just kind of see how things play out. I'll go if I'm able to. Like, I'll go if I can get the time off of work, right? So I won't even know my schedule till, a month before, like all that stuff. If you're going down that road, I think your odds of getting there are probably just about zero. And so I'd really encourage you, if you want to call me and talk through it, I'm never going to pressure you to go. I'm never going to make you feel terrible if you can't. Yeah, I'm pretty strong in that, but I like to work through things with you and figure out, and maybe worst case, if you can't make this one, we work around it in some capacity and make a commitment for a future one. So anyways, I hope you take my word for that. Hope you all put some work into those 2 questions, and maybe we'll bring that back up in a future training. But look forward to getting deep into IUL starting next week with you guys, and hope you all have a good week.